Meet the sheriffs.
Let's go and introduce ourselves.
Got an court writ to attend here today.
If it's not paid, we're going to be removing the stock.
Their job is to get you your money back.
It's about to get physical.
It's an arrestable offence to stop me doing my job.
If you've been ripped off and don't know where to turn,
we need to deal with it now.
We're going to remove vehicles to that value.
If you're acting on his authority, pay it.
if you've been to court but still not been paid what you're owed,
Are you going to open this building, sir, or am I going to force entry into it? You need to pay this.
it's time to call the sheriff.
Put your hands on me. I'm going to call the locksmith, effect entry into the premises and remove all the items. Whoa.
They're enforcement agents of the High Court, and the law says they're on your side.
It's collected 42 grand.
Coming up, when Lawrence and Kev visit a man with many identities,
You could call yourself Basil Brush. We can enforce against an alias.
which one doesn't want them in his house?
Don't put your hands on me. Don't you block me in here. And don't put your hands on me.
Fitness instructor Kamar Ahmed plunged into debt when the company he worked for didn't pay him for months.
I was behind on mortgage payments. It just became impossible to hold on to my property, and it was repossessed.
Can Sheriff Lawrence Grix weigh in and get him what he's owed?
Things going to be taken today.
Yeah. I'm starting to lose patience, to be honest.
David Conway's new car ran into problems after he bought it. Can Sheriffs Mark and Tony get his money back from the garage that sold it?
We need to take,
10 grand worth.
well, probably more than that.
It's early morning, and enforcement agents Lawrence Grix and Kev McNally are on the road. They're in Hampshire, on their way to meet their latest debtor.
We're about 5 miles away, so we should get there for about 6:45.
The sheriffs have visited the address before, but the man living there claimed not to be the man on their writ. But since then, some investigation seems to show otherwise.
It's given us the runaround a bit, but hopefully today we've got sufficient paperwork with us and sufficient evidence to shut the man up, basically. The total due is £28,605.32.
Lawrence and Kev are visiting on behalf of 2 former tenants, who have been awarded substantial sums by the court after falling into dispute with their landlord over their tenancy deposit. Arriving at the sizable premises, it's looking hopeful there'll be assets on site they can list and, if need be, remove. No one's up. It gives Lawrence plenty of time to list vehicles to potentially remove.
There we go. There's a noise there. There's definitely someone in.
Finally, they manage to raise someone from inside the house.
Hello there, sir.
But before they can get into discussion, the man shows his displeasure about our presence.
Recognise him from the photo.
At this point, our cameraman is asked to leave. We continue to film from the road. The man insists he is not the person named on Lawrence's writ. Lawrence is convinced he is, but has to prove it.
Did you change your name by deed poll, did you? Yeah, it's you, sir. And we're here today to remove goods to the value of £28,605.32.
The man says he knows nothing about the case and continues to insist he's not the man on the writ.
Who owns the Nissan Navara?
Lawrence threatens to remove the car, but the man says he can't because it belongs to his son.
If your son doesn't live here, why does he leave all his vehicles here? And where's your vehicle? These are your vehicles, aren't they? They're registered in your son's name. Right, well, we require proof otherwise, sir. He needs to come down with proof of ownership, sir, or we're going to remove. OK?
The man goes inside to contact his son. Meanwhile, Lawrence and Kev have found something interesting in the paperwork.
Who does a J like that?
That's him.
Comparing 2 signatures, Lawrence believes the distinctive J's are a dead giveaway, that they're signed by one person. He believes he's got his man.
If you look at that J, that is you, sir. There is the J. You have signed that. Yes, you have, sir. That's quite an unmistakable J.
Even faced with Lawrence's evidence, the man insists he is not the man named on the writ. but Lawrence is convinced.
We can enforce against an alias. If you're the person that you could call yourself Basil Brush, if you're the person known as Basil Brush, then we can enforce against you or Basil Brush.
With negotiations going nowhere, Kev decides to step things up. Determined to get the former tenants the money they're owed, he heads to the van to get the clamp for the Navara.
Looks like he's... Oh, he's gone in.
Lawrence is invited into the house. Perhaps the man doesn't realise that once inside, Lawrence can get listing assets, and not even the police can remove him.
I'm surprised he's been invited in, to be fair.
Inside, Lawrence says if need be, he'll take assets out of the house. This is not what the man expected when he invited Lawrence into the house. He begins to take exception to Lawrence's presence. With the temperature rising inside, Kev goes to Lawrence's aid. As Lawrence has gained peaceful entry, he's legally allowed to invite Kev in as well.
Come in, mate.
Don't put your hands on me. Don't you block him in here. And don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me either.
With things turning nasty, the police are called. Lawrence continues to investigate removing one of the cars. And Lawrence's call has an immediate effect. Despite continuing to insist he's not the man named on the writ, the householder agrees to pay off some of the debt, £5,000. But Lawrence is holding out for more. With Lawrence standing firm, the man ups his payment to £7,000 of the £28,000 owed. With matters reaching a conclusion for today, the police car is cancelled. Kev removes the clamp, and with a part payment, it's over for today. Lawrence's canny detective work and tenacious arguing has got a positive result for the former tenants.
As far as I'm concerned, that was a result. There's not a lot of evidence the gentleman is or was that alias. I'm pretty sure he is, and the fact that he volunteered to pay some money sort of implies that. That will keep the wolf from the door for the time being, and he can take whatever legal action he needs to take, and obviously we'll go by whatever the court says.
After we filmed, the man applied to have the judgment against him set aside. The former tenants agreed to this and accepted the £7,000 payment made to the sheriffs in full and final settlement. Being a sheriff is neither 9 to 5 nor office-based. Sheriffs cover the length and breadth of England and Wales, enforcing over 70,000 High Court writs every year. And setting out to enforce one of those are Sheriffs Lawrence Grix and Kev McNally.
We've got an employment tribunal case with two defendants. One is Photocopiers Direct Limited, and the other is the director of the company.
The former employee is owed over £20,000 for unfair dismissal. But despite having been told by a court of law that the money's rightfully theirs, they've still not received a penny of it. Aiming to change that, Lawrence and Kev arrive at the company director's house. They park up and head in. No one's answering the door, and neighbours soon inform the sheriffs that that's unlikely to change in a hurry.
They've been away a little while, have they?
He's on holiday. When are they back, do you know?
They've lived there a while, haven't they?
So how long have they been gone for?
About 6 weeks.
Yeah. Duration of the school holidays, the gent's saying.
6 weeks is too long even for Lawrence and Kev to wait for a debtor. This situation is usually the end of the story for the sheriffs, but while Lawrence fills out the paperwork, a sharp-eyed Kev spots a clue inside the car on the driveway, which might mean this enforcement isn't over yet.
Did you see that paperwork there? Photo imaging, so that all correlates with the...
Yeah, we've got any addresses on it. Oh, look, there we go, Unit 31.
With a possible second address traced, the sheriffs prepare to head off. But not before they've made a mental note of the car on the drive. in case they have to remove assets at some point in the future. Time to move on. If Lawrence can find a letterbox for the paperwork,
It's around the front. Lawrence.
while avoiding the attentions of his growing legion of fans.
Ah, so you've seen us before.
He's the one that's got them now.
Is he? Don't tell him that.
Clearly, Lawrence's television fame is spreading.
Is that your first time being recognised, Lawrence?
No, it isn't my first time
I
being
think it is now, isn't it? I can see by that smile on your face it is.
Bye. They're waving to us now.
That's your fan base, mate.
Oh, streaks out.
Putting their fans behind them, the sheriffs head out to check out the new business address. The boss may be on holiday, but Lawrence is determined that won't stop him getting his client the money they're owed.
Just because he's out of the country doesn't mean that we can't collect from his company. If need be, he'll have to do a bank transfer from wherever he is in the world on holiday. So we should be able to clear it up if there are sufficient assets there.
And 15 minutes later, they found their way to the head office of Photocopiers Direct Limited.
31, there. Photocopiers Direct Limited.
Lights are on.
But is there anybody home?
Heading inside, there is someone home, although it's not the man they're looking for, but a receptionist.
Ah, hello there. I'm here today to execute a writ against Photocopiers Direct Limited. I'm here today to take goods to the value of £20,741 and a penny, or collect payment.
The receptionist says the boss is away.
He's on holiday. I know. I've just been to his house, and his neighbours told me he's on holiday. Are you able to get him on the phone at all?
With Lawrence loose in the office, the receptionist wastes no time in getting the company director on the phone.
Hello there, sir. I'm here today to execute a High Court writ. We are here today to collect £20,741 and a penny.
While Kev gets listing company assets, the director tells Lawrence that he's trying to appeal the court's decision. But that doesn't bother Lawrence or his High Court writ.
It doesn't matter that there's an appeal going on, sir. On the 42nd day, you should have paid what was outstanding at that point in time, and you didn't, so it's been transferred to the High Court for enforcement purposes. It doesn't matter, sir. It doesn't matter.
The director is convinced the sheriffs should stop their enforcement, but Lawrence is having none of it.
The bottom line is, I have a live High Court writ in my possession today. The only way you can prevent further action is to pay in full. We're not here tomorrow, we're here today. We don't work on promises of payment tomorrow, we work on what you managed to pay us today. OK?
The director says he's going to talk to his solicitor. Lawrence, meanwhile, goes off to inspect the company's assets. Whether he'll get his hands on them or any money remains to be seen. We'll find out later. This morning, Sheriffs Mark Newton and Tony Smith are heading down the M4 into Wales.
We're going to the National Engine Centre in Cardiff. Total outstanding is £4,164.83.
The sheriffs are on their way to help David Conway and his wife Dorothy from Billingham in Teesside. He's been retired for the past 20 years and now loves to spend his spare time flying.
This is me hangar. These are my pride and joys. Noddy's me best, yeah. The planes are part of my life. They're very important to me. If I didn't have the planes, I would be just sat watching television all day. You know, I've crashed dozens and dozens. This is my latest. I'm known as Crasher Conway because I've had so many crashes.
As his enthusiasm for his hobby has grown, so has the size of his planes. If David wanted to keep his hobby on the straight and level, he needed to buy a car to transport the planes in. He decided the perfect vehicle was a Renault Grand Espace. At the National Engine Centre in Cardiff, David thought he had found the car he so desperately needed.
I've seen the car online. The car was in good condition. One previous owner. I really wanted this car. I didn't want any other car. So I got on the train and Went and got it.
It was an exhausting 600-mile round trip from Billingham to Cardiff, but by now, David had his heart set on the Espace. When he arrived at National Engine Centre, David wanted to try the Espace. He was allowed to take it for a brief test drive.
I thought it was a nice car, so I went ahead and bought it.
The Renault Espace cost David £2,500, all the savings he and his wife had. But it was only 4 miles down the road when disaster struck.
The car started and losing power, and eventually it stopped.
Stranded with a barely working car somewhere in Cardiff, David didn't know where to turn. Fortunately, he was able to get the car back to the garage, and he asked for a refund. But the garage said if he wanted one, he'd have to leave the car in Cardiff and wait till Monday when appropriate staff could process it.
I couldn't leave the car there and leave me money there, so I had to bring the car back.
With no refund, David realised he would have to nurse the car 300 miles back home.
It took me over 7 hours to drive back home in it. It really was horrendous.
Desperate to find out what was wrong, David took the car to a local garage. They diagnosed the problem as a dodgy engine control unit and a faulty valve in the exhaust system.
They couldn't give me an exact price, but they said it could go into thousands.
David immediately contacted the National Engine Centre, hoping for a quick resolution, but none could be agreed. It left him with the undrivable Espace grounded outside his home, constantly reminding him of the ordeal.
It's put so much pressure and stress on my wife and I.
David was left with no option but to take National Engine Centre to court. They failed to show up, and a judgment was issued in David's favour. The garage applied to have the case set aside, but once again were absent, and David won the case. Despite victory, David still hasn't received a penny.
I feel so annoyed that he's got away with it.
With nobody left to help, it's now down to the sheriffs to answer David's distress signal. Tony and Mark have found National Engine Centre.
It's quite big, isn't it?
They head in to try and get David the money he's owed.
Hi mate.
All in.
It's about a High Court writ that's been issued by David Knox Conway. Claimant sent us out to collect the money.
Speak to my boss around the phone.
Yeah, no worries. We'll wait.
While the man heads off to get his boss, Mark is already getting a bad feeling about the job.
I said, is that the National Engine Centre? He said, yeah, and then he said he don't work here.
Who you after, mate?
National Engine Centre.
National Engine Centre.
Can I have a look? It's not us, mate. See you later.
Who's that? Who is it then?
That's not us.
Well, there's National Engine Centre up there.
Yep. What did they say on the end?
There's limited.
Yeah.
The man claims that the name on the writ, National Engine Centre, isn't here. The company trading at these premises is Nat Engine Centre Limited.
Then cheery bye.
You want to leave from us?
Yeah. Thank you.
After a less than warm welcome, our camera is asked to leave. We continue to film from outside. The conversation carries on in the office, where the manager says he's not the director of National Engine Centre or Nat Engine Centre Limited. It doesn't take long for Mark to find evidence contradicting the man's story. A package delivered in front of them, with National Engine Centre written on it. Then things start to rev up at the engine centre as the manager shouts across the yard to his colleagues.
Alright. Get everyone out the garage. I want these guys to leave. They won't go. Yeah, they can be in breach of the peace now.
But it seems his staff aren't quite as keen to go toe-to-toe with the sheriffs as he thought, so he calls the police instead.
He's actually being quite awkward at the moment. He's unfortunately he's not cooperating at all. He's called the police and said there's been a breach of the peace, which there hasn't really, but we're just waiting for them to arrive now.
20 minutes later, the police arrive.
Oh yeah.
With the manager talking to the police, Mark and Tony take stock.
He's aware of the debt. He knows all about the debt. His argument now is that he used to be based around the corner and we can't come here because it's a different address. You know, the police are telling him he needs to pay, otherwise we're going to, you know, carry on and start removing the goods. So that's where we are. We're just waiting to see what happens, whether we can budge him into getting to pay some money.
Mark's been looking at what's available and phones the office to tell them about the substantial stock of engines.
So there's loads of engines. I mean loads. When I say loads, I mean loads.
There's loads of them out there. There's hundreds of them.
It looks like the only way the sheriffs will get David his money is by removing goods. Mark offers the man an ultimatum: provide receipts for each and every engine, pay the debt, or say goodbye to the whole lot. But the manager's not budging. So Tony orders up a truck.
Depending what they are, yeah. So I've no idea what an engine's worth, to be honest.
And it's going to be a big one.
I would take 10 just to be on the safe side. 7.5 tonne would probably be enough. But then you're going to need a forklift. But he ain't going to let you use his forklift. I'm telling you that now. He's the most difficult person I've ever met.
Mark and Tony discuss what will be leaving with them on the tow truck.
We need to take
10 grand worth, yeah.
Well, probably more than that, because we don't know what they're like, do we?
Give him 5 minutes, let him just think about it.
But with the tow truck on its way and his engines about to leave the premises, the manager has a sudden change of heart. Though the manager isn't admitting he owns the engines, he is offering to pay. It seems like the sheriffs have won the battle of wills. They head back to the office for payment.
Let's go. Get out of Wales.
The manager has paid £1,250 today and promises to put a payment plan in place to cover the rest.
Not as great as we wanted, but we've got £1,250 in cash off him here, so it's a start.
But despite Tony and Mark's efforts, the manager failed to submit a payment proposal for the outstanding amount. 3 weeks later, the sheriffs returned and collected the balance of £3,744. David Conway is on cloud 9. The money has enabled him to settle his debt and buy the car of his dreams. Another Renault Grand Espace.
The sheriffs have come along and really done the business. Yeah, over the moon.
The National Engine Centre told us they had offered David a refund the day he visited, and it was his decision to instead have the car repaired and drive it home. They said they'd later sent him a replacement part and offered to pay for a local garage to fix the problems. They had also again offered him a refund if he returned the car. They said it was Mr. Conway's decision to turn down these options and instead pursue court action. They said they had tried to contest the case, but that the court had lost papers. They said following the sheriff's enforcement, they'd again offered to pay the balance if the car was returned to them, an offer they say Mr. Conway chose to reject. Enforcement agents, commonly known as sheriffs, can go anywhere in England and Wales to enforce a High Court writ.
Got an High Court writ to attend here today.
It's a High Court writ issued against the company in the High Court.
If you don't understand all the implications of that and what it carries with it, then I respectfully suggest you speak to somebody who does.
If a debtor won't pay, the sheriffs won't leave empty-handed.
And if you can't raise it, if we've got roughly an hour, then we're going to have to start looking at taking the goods.
We know it's your vehicle, and that's why we're taking it.
At commercial premises, sheriffs are permitted to force entry to remove goods or return a building to its rightful owners.
I'm going to call the locksmith then, sir. Effect entry into the premises and remove all the items.
And with a writ in hand, almost nothing can stop a sheriff.
It doesn't put us down the writ.
The writ's still live.
Doesn't matter what the dispute is, you have to pay.
It's live until the court puts us down.
sheriffs have collected almost £200 million of unpaid court judgments in the last 3 years.
That's what we want to see, that coming out the van.
All cleared up, paid in full.
A High Court writ costs £60. If the sheriffs are successful, there's nothing more to pay. If they're unsuccessful, the only cost is a compliance fee of £75 plus VAT for each enforcement.
He's done one. He's ran upstairs and hid.
Back in North London, sheriffs Lawrence and Kev are at the offices of Photocopiers Direct, trying to recover over £20,000 in unpaid wages owed to a former employee. Lawrence is still trying to convince the absent company owner to pay up. In the meantime, he and Kev have started listing company assets in case they need to remove them to pay off the debt. And being an office equipment business, there's no shortage of them.
These parts are numbered, I mean...
They're all toners, so you literally just do a head count of how many toners you've got.
25C552 toner cartridge towers. I'm listing like a demon.
That's the kiddie. You're learning.
Moments later, the company boss rings back, saying he's talked to his solicitor, who's assured him he shouldn't have to pay. But Lawrence has some news for him that might change his mind. He informs the man he's well aware of his car parked on the drive of his house.
No, I haven't removed it at the moment. I'm ordered here today to, if necessary, remove goods to clear this debt, which would mean clearing this place out. And then if there's any outstanding money after that's been sold, I would then be reattending your home address. I've already been there this morning, and I would be reattending if there's any outstanding balance. I'll be reattending with a view to removing goods from your residential address if the goods in this property here don't cover the debt. Okay, sir.
Lawrence thinks his threats might be getting through.
That shook him.
Did it? What, going around his house?
Yeah. That shook him rigid.
But before they can list any more assets, a call comes through for Lawrence. This time it's not the company boss, it's his solicitor, and he's not happy at all about Lawrence's presence on the premises or his threats to remove goods. He says he's put in an appeal on the company's behalf, which means Lawrence should back off. But it takes more than a legal qualification to stop Lawrence enforcing a writ.
Right, that doesn't matter to our writ. We have a live writ. It doesn't matter. Well, that's nothing to do with us. I've been handed a live writ and I enforce that writ. We're going round and round in circles. You do what you've got to do and I'll do what I've got to do. Okay? Okay, bye-bye.
After an hour on the premises, Lawrence still doesn't have a payment. Unless he can convince them they need to pay, he could end up with nothing for his client. Time to show them he means business. Bring on the removal truck.
Alright, so... yeah, I'm going to need at least one 7.5 tonne truck, preferably with a tail lift, because it's loads of photocopiers.
And nothing in the office is safe from Lawrence's clutches.
Are you able to back up the systems? Do you know what you need to do to back up the systems? Because we're going to start turning it off shortly. Everything. It's not yours personally, is it? It's the company computer. Everything will be going. The chairs, the stereo, everything.
Lawrence would prefer some kind of payment to going to the trouble of removing goods. He decides to make one last call to the director to see if he can get some money out of him today, even if it's not the full amount.
Can you do £10,000, which is just under half?
And after taking a moment to think about it...
you need to do it by immediate payment as well, so that I can check that it's in our bank account, yeah?
Bingo. The director can't do £10,000, but agrees to pay £7,000, with the rest to follow. It might be less than the full writ, but with an absent company director and a large quantity of equipment that they'd have to remove, it's a valuable result for the sheriffs.
All right, so could you check the account for me, please? I believe the money should be there now. All right, lovely. All right, cheers. Bye.
And with that, it's game, set and match for the sheriffs. A partial payment with the rest to come at a later date.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
So that's the job done as far as we're concerned. There's no more we could do today. We've probably, in fact, collected more than the goods in there were worth. So I think we've done quite well to get the part payment.
An empty house and an unpromising start couldn't stop the sheriffs getting a result. And they're not leaving things there.
Yeah, if he doesn't get a stay and he doesn't make any kind of payments or put in a proposal that's accepted by the claimant, then we'll be back.
And since Lawrence and Kev's visit, Photocopiers Direct have paid up the money owed in full. The director told us the only reason he hadn't paid the debt previously was that he was still going through the appeals process for the Employment Tribunal. He said he had been abroad when his final appeal had been rejected, and so had been late in paying up. He said it was the first time he had gone through the tribunal process, that the debt had now been paid in full, and that the matter had been dealt with and closed. It's early morning, and Sheriffs Lawrence and Kev are in the van again and coming into Hertfordshire. They're here to settle a debt with local gym Fitness for Less, whose relationship with a personal trainer hasn't worked out.
With the gym, you know, I would think you'd find sufficient assets there to clear the debt, so we'll be looking for full payment.
The man they're on their way to help is Kamar Ahmed from Watford. His personal fitness is everything to him, and working out is his passion. But it's not just a hobby, it's also his livelihood as a professional personal trainer.
I love the fact that I was in a position to help other people reach their fitness goals and just general well-being, really. That's something that really drives me and motivates me.
Extend your arm for that jab.
After deciding to make personal training his career 7 years ago, Kamar took a job with a local gym, Sports Academy.
It's the best job I've had. It was fantastic. The team was great.
Okay, yeah.
I had a very popular boxer-size class. I think that was probably the happiest time for me personally in the gym.
Back again, okay, let's go. Yeah.
But Sports Academy ran into financial problems, with wages paid only sporadically.
Okay, let's go. Jab.
The company was taken over by a new firm, Fitness for Less. They inherited the Sports Academy wage bill, and Kamar and the other staff hoped they'd finally get paid what they were owed.
Good, I'm gonna hit 2 breaths, okay, let's go out.
But at a meeting with staff, the new owner has some hugely disappointing news.
Categorically said that they're not going to pay our wages in front of the previous owner, who had 5 minutes before just said that the new owners will pay us our backdated wages.
Kamar was owed just over £4,000 in unpaid wages, so together with the other disgruntled staff, he agreed to help bring legal action to fight their case.
They had already made it pretty obvious they had no intention of paying us that money, so that was the only sensible thing to do. We had to take it through the courts, so we had to stick together and we had to take this to the tribunal.
When the judge heard the case, he ruled that when the business was sold, the new owner should take on the responsibility for the previous company's unpaid debts, including backdated wages. It was vindication for Kamar.
Justice has been done, absolutely. It was a great feeling.
But getting the money he was owed wasn't quite as simple as that. Fitness for Less began to settle with Sports Academy's former employees, but a signed agreement for Kamar wasn't forthcoming.
A lot of my colleagues at this point started to get paid off. I was still being positive. I was thinking, okay, maybe they're going through reverse alphabetical order and I'm going to get paid right at the end. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and the money just did not come through.
The stress of the legal fight and failure to pay him the money he was owed took its toll on Kamar. He was diagnosed with acute depression and signed off work.
And that was the beginning of my dark path that I had to go down. I found myself alone. I found myself often spending days with the curtain shut. And I just didn't want to be seen by anyone, really.
Without his unpaid wages, Kamar's financial situation went from bad to worse. Eventually, it cost him his home.
That's where I used to live.
As soon as I stopped getting paid from Fitness for Less, I was behind on mortgage payments. It just became impossible to hold on to my property, and it was repossessed. I've been put up by good friends, and they've helped me through a lot.
Finally, a few months after the tribunal hearings, Kamar received a part payment from Fitness for Less. He was promised the rest would follow, but it didn't. So he went back to the employment tribunal.
I'm very stubborn. There was no way I was going to give up on that. No way. No way.
Fitness for Less didn't attend the latest tribunal hearing, and a judgment was issued in Kamar's favour. But despite this, Kamar still hasn't been paid. So now it's up to Lawrence and Kev to get Kamar the money and the closure he so desperately wants. Arriving at their destination, they're struggling to find a place to park up.
So we can't stop here, though.
With a deep-seated fear of traffic wardens, Lawrence leaves Kev with the van. This is going to be one writ he'll have to enforce alone.
He stayed with the van because it's got clamping signs and tow-away signs and things. Hello there. My name's Mr. Griggs. I'm here to execute a High Court writ against Fitness for Less Watford Limited. It's £5,399.58.
Was this a reason to replace with an ex-member of staff?
Yeah. Kamar Ahmed.
Would you take it?
OK.
While the manager gets on the phone to his superiors, Lawrence gets to work making notes on equipment. If need be, he could remove an auction machinery to pay off the debt.
Are things going to be taken today?
Yeah, it can be prevented by full payment. So, your manager, your director, whoever.
The manager runs off to call his boss again, while Lawrence tries to work out which exercise machine is which.
Handily, it's all labelled up with what it is.
Moments later, having made some calls, the manager's got a message for Lawrence.
My colleague is in at 10 a.m. today,
Yeah.
so we're going to have to do some form of online bank transfer. So is that okay? Oh,
Yeah. If he normally starts at 10 and he's sorting out his private life, then that's, that's entirely down to him. Yeah, I think we're going to get paid in full.
It's looking promising, but Lawrence knows better than to count his pennies until they're firmly in his hand. Having agreed to wait, it seems he might not even need to. The gym manager is back with good news.
All right, and he's doing the transfer, is he?
All Lawrence needs to do is wait to see that the funds have come through, and it's job done.
Can you just keep your eye on the bank account for me?
Half an hour later, Lawrence is still waiting for payment. We, meanwhile, are asked to stop filming. Inside, Lawrence continues to push for full payment. And Fitness for Less are beginning to feel the burn. They make the payment, and this time, the money does go through.
It went all right in the end. We were hanging around for a while, but in the end I got the majority of it by bank transfer, and then the odd little bit by cash.
Let's get out of here.
And most importantly, they can report back that Kamar will finally receive the money that's due to him.
I'm very happy, and I'd like to say thank you to them. I think I made the right choice for sure. With that money, I'm going to set up my own personal training business, and I'm going to make a difference in my life, and I'm going to make a difference in the lives of my clients as well.
Fitness for Less told us that when they took over the Sports Academy gym, they did not know about unpaid staff wages, and that legal advice they were given at the time indicated they should not be responsible. They believe they made all reasonable effort to get Kamar his money, including writing him a cheque for him to collect from them. They said, however, that despite numerous efforts to get in touch with Kamar, they were unable to reach him, and that he left them no forwarding contact details. The The sheriff's work isn't all about collecting debts from small businesses.
Are you going to pay in full, sir?
Sometimes they're tasked with taking on some of the biggest corporate names in the UK. And this afternoon, Lawrence and Kev are on just such a case.
We're on our way to Luton at the moment, to Thomson Airways. It's to do with a delayed flight, and the total due is £1,727.82.
This passenger's case, and thousands more like it, have come about due to a European Court of Justice ruling. If your flight is delayed by more than 3 hours without an adequate reason why, you can demand compensation from the airline at fault. It's opened the floodgates for passengers to get back what they deserve.
That's their logo, isn't it? See that top one?
I believe so, yeah.
Thomson is part of the TUI Travel Group, which makes hundreds of millions of pounds in operating profit every year. Will they be able to rustle up the £1,700 they need to pay off this debt?
Hello there, I'm looking for somebody from Thomson's Airways who can deal with a High Court writ.
The receptionist goes off to find someone more senior to deal with the issue. How will Thomson's big brass react to having 2 sheriffs on site with a High Court writ in hand?
Hello there. All right, you're from the legal, are you? I'll just show you some ID.
Right, second enough.
At this point, our cameraman is asked to leave the building. The firm's legal team get looking into the case. While they do that, Kev gets on with listing goods he can remove if necessary to pay off the debt. Soon after, Kev comes out to fill us in on what's going on inside.
There's obviously lots of office space in there, hundreds of computers, desks, sofas, tables and such forth. Televisions all around the place. We take the full inventory of the place and they're just sorting out payment at the moment.
Faced with Lawrence and Kev and a High Court writ, Thomson agreed to pay there and then in full. Lawrence and Kev emerge with the money in the bank and a smile on their faces.
It was a good outcome in the end. We got paid in full on a credit card. As we expected to, really. It wasn't a vast amount of money, £1,700. A company like Thomson's can easily afford that.
It's good news for the sheriffs, but much more importantly for the passenger who brought the claim, and who'll finally get the money they're owed paid in full. Thomson Airways told us they would like to apologise to the customer for the delay in paying the compensation awarded. They said they operate a fair and thorough process to deal with EU delay claims in line with the regulation. They said on this occasion, an administrative error meant that the payment was not processed and that it had now been made. They said they would like to reassure customers that they are committed to maintaining on-time performance across their flying programme.